everyone, Effie here. Today I'm going to make this card using our new Blizzard Hug stamp set and our new Popup Poinsettia dies. Now I'm going to start off by heat embossing this large snowflake stamp from our Blizzard Hug 6x8 set. I'll be heat embossing this large image onto some black cardstock, and the embossing powder that I'm using will be Zing Silver Glitter Embossing Powder because I want a lot of bling for this holiday card. So after I've stamped the image in some sticky embossing ink, I just spooned on some of the embossing powder and hit the whole panel with my heat tool. Then I took the coordinating dies for our Blizzard Hugs and I partially die cut the panel. Now as you can see, I left the sliver of the edge hanging right off the end of my cutting plates. So the die is going to cut the entire image with the exception of that right border. There's going to be a portion of the panel on the right side where the die will not cut into the cardstock or the card panel because I've left that portion out of the sandwich. Now I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife. Actually, this is a pen knife and it's pretty cool. And I'm going to carefully extract that die cut snowflake from the panel. And I'm going to save this for a future project, but before I put it away, I am going to use it to measure out the silver ribbed adhesive paper that I'll be using as the backing or background for my die cut snowflake window. And I'm using our silver ribbed adhesive paper. Before I mount that adhesive paper onto my side folding card base, I'm going to add some stitching to the edges of my snowflake panel using the largest die from our double stitch rectangles large die collection. The largest die will just add stitching to all four edges of an A2 panel. So once I've done that, I'm just going to take this panel and create some tick marks onto my card base because I want to make sure I apply this adhesive paper behind that window. Once I've mounted that adhesive ribbed glitter paper onto the card base, I just white heat emboss the sentiment, which is from the Blizzard Hug set, right onto the black card panel, and then I adhered the snowflake panel onto the base using our strong double-sided adhesive sheets, which I cut into strips, and I also used some additional liquid adhesive for the more intricate areas. And then for the last step for the front of my card, I just embellished my project using our clear rhinestones. Now these clear rhinestones come in 3 sizes and they have no backing on them, so they take on whatever color you adhere them onto, so they look like pretty faceted dewdrops. And now I'm going to create a beautiful pop-up poinsettia for the inside of my card base. And I'll be using our pop-up poinsettia die bundle collection. It features 7 dies, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut the petals onto some red paper. Now this paper that I'm using is not cardstock. It feels more like a printer paper, so it's more lightweight. You don't want to use a heavyweight cardstock for the inside of your card, otherwise it just gets too bulky. I also use the largest die to die cut onto green cardstock for the leaves. Now for the leaves you can use regular cardstock since it'll lie flat inside your card base, but for the petals you want to make sure you use lighter weight paper. So next I'm starting with the largest petal die cut, and I'm going to fold up the 2 tabs in the center, and I'm going to fold them towards me, and then I'm going to glue that end tab to the opposite facing or opposite end petal, and then I'm going to fold up all the areas where the score line runs in between each petal and the score lines within the petals. This is going to give your poinsettia a little bit more definition. So I'm going to repeat the process for each petal ring layer. And as I glue each ring into my card base, I'm going to line up those 2 tabs that are facing each other. I'm going to adhere those right in the center of my card base so that the score line of the card base runs parallel to that area between those tabs facing each other. And I'm going to repeat the process for all the petal rings, but for the second layer, I forgot to crease the petals, so I just do it after I glued it down. So it's not the end of the world if you skip the creasing step. You can do it after you mount everything in your card base, but it's just easier before you glue it down. So within this die collection, there are these two smaller petal dies that only have 3 petals in the layers. So I'm going to take the larger one and I'm just going to glue the end tab to that end petal, crease the petals in half, and then I'm going to glue this larger tri-petal ring. You can go ahead and now add the smallest tri-petal ring into your pop-up poinsettia at this point, but I actually wanted to add an additional layer for a more fuller poinsettia. So before I glued in this smallest petal ring, I actually die cut the larger tri-petal ring and I added that into my pop-up poinsettia as an extra layer. So once I've adhered that right into my pop-up floral, I added the smallest tri-petal ring. And you can actually do this with any of the petal layers. So if you want to add an extra layer of the largest die cut, you can do that, or the second largest die cut, you can do that also. But I just chose the larger tri-petal ring for this card. Next, I'm going to adhere the 2 poinsettia centers. Now there are 2 different size poinsettia centers, so I'm just going to fold the larger one in half and glue that to the inside of the pop-up floral. I'm going to do the same thing for the smaller size center. At this point, you can leave your poinsettia as is, or you can add poinsettia leaves. This is the largest petal die cut. I just went ahead and chopped off that end tab and then also cut the petal in half. So now I'm just going to start tucking in my poinsettia leaves behind my floral. So I die cut the largest die onto green cardstock 3 times, and after I cut off that end tab, I just applied a little bit of liquid adhesive to the or behind the edge of each half petal ring. And then I just started tucking and nestling the leaves right behind my poinsettia. And you can use as many layers as you want depending on the thickness of the paper you're using. So here it is, the finished pop-up poinsettia. I hope you all enjoyed today's card and video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to check out our Fall 2018 release.